Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. We're just have a few minutes before we get started. So if you're already here with us, go ahead and type your name and your comments. Let us know where you're joining us from into the chat, whether you're joining us on Facebook or YouTube or LinkedIn. We'd love to hear from you. Just giving everyone a couple of more minutes before they arrive. All right, everyone. Hello again. We're just getting ready to get started. And today we have a special slideshow that we've put together for you. And today we're going to be talking to Bob Lee, our fearless leader and director of the Florida School of Massage. And some of these photographs are from his travels. So it'll just be about a minute and a half or so. So just enjoy these photographs and we'll be back with you shortly. All right. So, hi everyone. Hopefully, you can see Bob and I now. And again, thank you for joining us on our live stream from the Florida School of Massage. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Christina Polney, and I'm here with Bob Lee. And behind the scenes, we have Sarah Thompson and Chrissy Martinez, who I'm so thankful for because without their support and help, we would not be here today. And we have been so motivated and inspired to continue to get creative and find ways to stay in community, in connection with one another as we continue through these extraordinary times that we're in. And of course, we're not at the school, but rather coming to you from our respective homes here in Gainesville. And we are so looking forward to resuming classes as soon as we can. And in the meantime, I know we have a variety of listeners from all different backgrounds, and some of you are very familiar with our community. And for those of you who are brand new, I'd just like to say welcome. And yes, we are definitely a massage school with a wonderful professional training program. And yet it is so much more than that. And so many of our past students and professionals continue to return to Gainesville for continuing education and advanced trainings, or even just to dip into a place of ongoing learning. And not only of body work, but also the exploration of our inner world through this vehicle of touch, communication, both verbal and nonverbal. And we're all still working from home, and we have just been really looking forward to this time together. So, as always on our live streams, we will have about an hour together to talk to Bob and hear about his own path to becoming a massage therapist. And we'll reserve time at the end for your questions and comments. And I know you're either joining us on Facebook or YouTube or LinkedIn. So please type your comments or questions into the chat. And it's our goal to interact with as many of you as we can. And Sarah and Chrissy will be monitoring those questions for us. And also, if you're joining us on YouTube, you can go ahead and like this video and subscribe to our channel by hitting the red button below. And remember to hit that notification button as well to get a reminder. And for those of you on Facebook, you can like this video and follow us there as well. So again, my name's Christina, and I've been a part of the massage school family since around 1992, and I'm just so happy and excited to be sitting here with our director, Bob Lee. And now, Bob, you've been a part of the massage school for many years, first as a student, then a teacher, then our educational director, and now our fearless leader in 2020. And I know we have some listeners who are brand new to our community, and I know some people will know you very well. So before we move into our discussion, why don't you just tell us a little bit about your own background and just what originally inspired you to study massage all those years ago?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me here. I've really enjoyed following and watching the live streams events as they've been going on in this difficult time that we all find ourselves in, of being separate from our normal routines and our normal life, such as it is. So my story of becoming a massage therapist, while unique to me, of course, it's my story. After being involved for years at the massage school and hearing so many other stories of people who are drawn into this profession and specifically drawn to the Florida School of Massage, there's some commonalities, I believe, as well. But in a nutshell, that question, I could probably spend the entire 45 minutes talking about all the different aspects of that process, and they all kind of happened on a sort of a linear time frame, but also this really spatial aspect as well. But what feels really at the core of it, and certainly looking back in hindsight, was that I spent most of my adult life with this idea of what one is supposed to do to attain happiness in their lives. Whether it be a product of the schooling that I was educated in, or upbringing, family backgrounds, any number of things, the belief system that I formed was one that you graduate high school, you go to college, you find a
Yeah.
job, you work at that job for your adult life, you get married, you have children, and you're happy. It was an equation.
Sure.
And so I spent a lot of years trying to check those boxes off of that equation.
Mm-hmm.
And, um, moved different jobs. Okay, this one I'm not really feeling very fulfilled in this with this work or this job. So it's got to be the job, and then so the next one I'll feel that, and uh, I found myself, yeah, again, just not feeling very fulfilled in what I was doing in my life. Felt
Mm-hmm.
like something was missing, and I
Mm.
didn't really know what that was at the time.
Yeah.
And the last job that I'd had prior to enrolling in massage school, I was an outside sales rep for a beauty supply distributor, and my clientele were hair salons and nail techs and spas, and I carried products that supported those various industries. So I was in the spa sort of environment, salon environment for about a year and a half, and that was kind of really one of the first introductions to massage as a career for me. Prior to that, actually prior to even considering massage school, I'd never had a massage, or would have identified myself as someone who's even comfortable with touch, either giving or
Interesting.
receiving.
Yeah. Mm.
And so in that time of that um, job, coupled with other things that were happening sort of simultaneous in my life,
Yeah.
opened up this idea of massage as a career, as a profession. And one day it was in I'd started considering it. I explored a school in Ocala, and was actually kind of planning on going to that school because it would have enabled me to keep my job uh, while I went to a night program. And this was in November of 2004. And I was driving up 441 from Ocala to go make some sales calls, and
Huh?
passed by those two big hands holding a sign. And prior to that, even though I'd passed it hundreds and hundreds of times, I never noticed that the sign said the Florida School of Massage. It never
So
registered.
fascinating. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't even really know that there were people in the building. It was just until that day. And
So interesting.
whatever whatever happened that finally sort of lifted the veil that enabled me to see the Florida School of Massage, or the sign. I'm really grateful for that, because I made a
Yeah.
U-turn and walked in the front door, kind of unexpected. I didn't have an appointment or anything. Just was going in to find out some information, and Jen greeted me. She was at the front desk with a really warm smile, and like so many other people's stories, once I went into that building and that space, I felt something. There was
Yeah.
some palpable thing that I noticed.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so that was in November, and Paul Davenport um, gave me a tour that day. And uh, that was November, and by January I had quit my job, and I was fortunate enough to be able to do that, and enrolled and started the program in January.
How wonderful. And you're right, it is a common story, and it's so interesting, isn't it? How timing is everything. And
Mhm.
yes, I've heard that from many people who live in Gainesville, that they didn't even know the school was there until one day
Yeah,
they
until one
came.
day. Yeah,
Yeah. Thanks.
pretty
That's
amazing.
Yeah, it's a great story. And now I know your time as a student here set you on this life-changing course. And could you share some of your actual experience of being a student here for our listeners?
Sure, yeah, that's one of the things that I really love and continues to inspire me about the Florida School of Massage, is how it's based in my own individual experience as a
Mm,
student, and then subsequently on staff and as part of the community. But so as I mentioned, I I really was kind of looking for the thing that was going to
yeah.
um, bring me some joy or fulfillment in my life. Not that my life was that drastic or anything, but generally in retrospect, looking back, I would say that I was searching. So when I came to school, and particularly on the very first day of orientation, in fact, within the first 15 or 20 minutes of orientation, uh, the class, I was invited to uh, examine the steps that led me to where I was sitting in that moment,
Mm,
and what and this probably will sound familiar to anyone listening who's been to the Florida School of Massage
yeah.
orientation, um, uh, and how I wished for my experience to be moving forward through over
Mm,
the next 6 months, or even in the greater time frame of one's life, and what is it that I wanted to accomplish with
mm,
not only my educational experience at the Florida School of Massage, but my life in general.
mm.
And that really kind of blew my mind right away. That, wow, here I am. I came in thinking, oh, I'm going to learn this profession, this career, that
Yeah.
that I will have this ability to travel around, or wherever I am. I have my tools with me. I'm able to work, right?
Yeah.
And within the first, like I said, 15 or 20 minutes, now all of a sudden I'm contemplating my life and what I want it to be and how I want my life to be.
Sure.
And I really, that really landed with me at that time in my life. And so uh, I just set a clear intention to be as present as I could through all the experiences that were available over the next 6 months of training at school. And beyond the skill set of learning a career and preparing myself to become a licensed massage therapist and all those wonderful things that are integral part of our program.
Yeah.
Uh, that's as Paul used to say, that was just kind of the icing on the cake. What the experiences that really have informed and shaped sort of the direction that my life took from that moment on are the ones that enabled me and invited me to inquire within,
Mm,
and to bring some attention and awareness to myself,
mm-hmm.
and examine the all the parts of myself that make me me,
Yeah.
and uh, and the opportunity to integrate all those parts of myself through this wonderful vehicle of touch and
Mm,
awareness.
yeah.
And those are the experiences that are so profound in my memory, and in my experience of being a student at the Florida School of Massage.
Yeah.
And have, and to this day, continue to, again, shape and inform the direction of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I happened to meet my wife while I was at school.
Oh, yeah. Just a little life-changing side note.
Just a small one. I remember the first day of walking into the Blue Room, and there was. I'm an habitually early person, so.
Uh-huh.
Uh, but there were some people that were there before me, which is not always the case. And she happened to be one of them. But I walked in, and there was, I don't know, maybe 15 or 20 people sitting in the room, my classmates, many of whom, I'm still friends with, and the bonds that form within the community of at FSM are truly amazing. That's a
Right.
whole other level of experiences that
Sure.
exist. But I saw her sitting across the room, and when sat next to her, and remember sitting there feeling very awkward and uncomfortable, as many
Yeah.
people are coming into the Blue Room for the first time.
Sure.
uh, and we didn't talk or anything like that. But over the course of the program, we developed a friendship and ultimately a relationship, and ended up we got married out back at school at the little house, and Michael Bross was officiated our ceremony. So it was really just on many different levels a life changing experience for me. Any one
Love
of them
that.
is any one of the levels, any one of the things
Yeah.
is life changing, but coupled all together.
Yeah. So after you graduated and you're newly married, what was actually your first job as a licensed massage therapist?
Well, that was part of the appeal. One of the appeals of the profession for me was, again, I briefly mentioned a moment ago, this idea of being able to travel around,
Mm-hmm.
to not my employment not being tied to one particular place.
Right.
So that was one of my intentions early on in pursuing this career in this education, was to travel and practice
Mm,
massage, and see the beauty of this country, and maybe even the world. While that hasn't happened yet, but certainly this country. Um, so when we graduated, and fortunately that was my wife's desire as well, so that worked out pretty good. uh,
excellent. Yeah.
so when we graduated, we were free. We're like, well, where are we going to go? What are we going to do? Uh,
Yeah.
and we had both had this really strong desire to explore out west, and uh, my family went out on a vacation when I was 15 to like the Grand Canyon and Zion, and uh, national park tour out
Nice.
west, and it was just a whirlwind. I was 15, so of course my mind was really elsewhere at the time.
Sure.
um, so we had both had this desire to explore out there, and we started looking for jobs. We just went online and were doing some searches for employment opportunities for massage therapists, and really kind of just hitting a brick wall with it. Like, it wasn't really happening. It wasn't flowing, and that was such a different experience than what I had had since the decision to attend the Florida School of Massage. It's felt like from that moment forward, up until then, things just happened that felt really good and natural and appropriate. Like I was in the flow. I was in the rhythm, right?
Yeah.
Not that there weren't challenges in that as well, but
Sure. Sure.
and so we talked and said, well, this isn't really flowing. Let's see what else is out there. And we ended up exploring Key West, Florida, and uh, we were living in Ocala. We found a few places that were getting ready to hire for their season, which is in the winter. And we took a little road trip, went down there and interviewed, and we both lined up 2 interviews at 3 different places. So we each had 1 interview with the same place.
Uh-huh.
And we ended up getting hired at the spa in Key West, and both at the same spa, and we ended up with the same schedule. And it was really just a wonderful beginning to our journey as professional massage therapists. The clientele were wonderful clientele. The pay was really good, and we were newlyweds living in Key West for a season.
That's so great. I'm sure that'll be so inspiring to so many of our students getting ready to begin their profession and begin their training. I know we get a lot of very creative people at the school, artists, musicians, people who have other interests such as travel, and having this mobile profession is very appealing. So it's so nice to hear your own path to other parts of Florida. And actually, then you and Shakti started a family. You actually came back to Gainesville for a few years and decided to explore teaching. And can you talk about that a little bit, and what led you back to Gainesville, and what led you back to the classroom?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd known very early on in my educational experience at school that something was happening there that felt really good to me, that I wanted to be a part of.
You mean at the massage school?
At the massage school.
Right.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I wasn't really sure what that was, because I was a student and I was in it, but that was my sense at the time. And so I approached Paul probably about halfway through the program, inquiring of, how does one become a staff member or a teacher at the massage school? What is that process like?
Yeah.
And
by the way, I'm just pausing you for a moment. For those of you that are new to our community, I just want to mention that Paul Davenport and his wife Josie Davenport were the longtime owners of the massage school. And Paul Davenport left this earth about 5 years ago now. It'll be 5 years this summer. And Josie Davenport still is the sole proprietor of the Florida School of Massage. I just wanted to mention that. But go ahead, continue, because you've mentioned Paul so many times.
Yeah, that was very appropriate.
He was
interjection.
a leader and mentor for many of us for many years, and his legacy lives on in this communmy.
Definitely.
Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, in so many ways.
Yes, yeah.
I have so many memories of Paul, and I'll just kind of go on a little tangent for just a moment.
Sure.
He was not only the owner and the director for so many years, but also he taught in the A&P curriculum in the program. And my scholastic background was not the best. I had challenges in school, and so thinking of massage school, one of my fears around it was that I was going to have to learn this complex anatomy and know all the names of the muscles and the bones and all these things. And Paul created an amazing curriculum that made that experience of learning that not only fun, but really what I learned was that I'm capable of learning those things, whereas before I didn't know I was capable of learning those things, and
Yeah.
that's the difference, you know.
Yes. Yeah.
But one of the things he used to say, closer to the end was, if we were getting ready to take our licensing exam, for example, and had a question that we couldn't recall, we could just close our eyes and picture Paul right here and ask him a question, and then we'll hear him answer. And I find myself, I still do those things to this day. Of course, it's not about passing the test, but
Yes.
uh, um, anyway, so I came into his office and asked him what what I would need to do to be a teacher at the massage school. And it's interesting because now I'm in that office and in the role that he was in,
Yes.
and uh, at least once, more often than not, more than once, a class, I have students come into the office and ask me the same exact question,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
and interestingly enough, the answer that I give them is really very similar to the answer that Paul gave me, and so it set me on this path, right? I knew that's
Yeah.
what I wanted to do, so I kind of organized my life and experiences with not only this idea of wanting to travel around and experience different parts of the country and support myself through the practice of massage therapy, but also knowing that I wanted to return to Gainesville and attend the teacher training program and eventually teach in the classroom.
Right.
And so that was how we organized our lives, and we were. It was 2 years was what Paul said. Go out in the world, practice for 2 years, and then come back and apply for the teacher training program. And there were some other
Uh-huh.
things that were involved as well. So I that's what I did. We left Key West, and when the season was over, and we were thinking, well, where are we going to go next? And there were several people we met in Key West that were seasonal workers, like we were at that time,
Yeah.
and uh, they were heading up to Bar Harbor, Maine, where Acadia National Park is on Mount Desert Island. There, really beautiful, amazing,
So
um,
nice.
amazing place. And we had some friends who lived right outside Bar Harbor, and we said, well, let's go there because the seasons were their seasons in the summer, not the winter.
Nice. Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be there in the winter. Um, so we traveled up there, got jobs, and again in the same spa in a very similar schedule. So that was really nice. And 2 years had passed, and I applied to attend the teacher training program. Was accepted into that, and
Uh-huh.
returned to the Florida School of Massage as a teacher assistant in the teacher assistant program, and was very fortunate to. I approached that experience very similar to my approach to the first time, as a student, and was fortunate that about halfway through-ish of the program, a position in the administrative staff opened up in the admissions department, and I applied for that and was hired and started working in the administrative staff while attending the teacher training program,
Nice.
and then graduated the teacher training program and was fortunate enough and honored to be offered a position on the connective tissue team. And that's when I started teaching in the classroom. It was actually the Monday after graduating the teacher training program.
Wow. That was fast. And then also at the same time you were growing your family, right? And it wasn't
Well, Actually, no, there was a little time difference there. So
Okay.
we, uh, so I continued teaching on the connective tissue team and working in the administrative office, and we kind of got the travel bug again, and so much like the we talk about it throughout the program, and really a lot of us on staff even model, that this profession is one that can really support one's lifestyle. Uh, I had uh, quit the admissions role and continued to be on staff as a teacher, but that enabled me this time, and we went back up to Bar Harbor for the summer for a season, and I would go up there. We'd arrive around June, May, late May, early June, and uh, I'd come back to Florida in July, which is when connective tissue historically happened, and
Yeah.
teach for a month, and then go back up until the end of the season, which was September-ish, and then come back to Florida and then teach. And I had a little bit of a private practice happening as well at that time. And I think it was after maybe my second year of teaching, right around there, I think it was, we decided that we wanted to start a family, and we went up to Bar Harbor for sort of one last season before we were going to start a family, and the best laid plans, of course,
Sure.
we ended up starting our family a little earlier than anticipated, which was totally fine and great, and
Great. Wonderful.
moved back to Gainesville. And
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough the timing again kind of worked out that there was another position in the administrative office that
Yeah.
opened up. I got hired for that and was continuing to teach connective tissue, worked in
Yeah.
administrative, and we started raising our little family here in Gainesville.
Yeah, and now then you had two gorgeous boys, Taylor and Sawyer, and it wasn't too long before you guys got the travel bug again, right? Decided to hit the road, and instead of two of you, this time there were four of you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That was
so that must
interesting
have been
time.
another adventure, huh?
Yeah, it was. One of the things that was always sort of challenging for me in the traveling that we did was
Yeah.
where we're going to live while we're in these places.
Yes.
Uh, my wife, that was never really a concern for her. Uh, that's not something that she really worried about. But I did,
Sure.
um, and now we were planning on finally going out west and exploring uh, out there. And we had two young boys, and it was hard to wrap my head around, like, oh, where are we going to live, and I wanted to give a little bit of stability to the boys. We were going to be leaving the only place that they had ever known, right? Because they were born at home and lived in the same
Sure.
house, at that time their whole lives.
Yeah.
So we were camping up at one of the springs here, and we came across this family who was living in an RV, and they traveled around the country in their RV as a family unit, and it really kind of blew my mind, right? That was something, again, that kind of never really occurred to me before.
Mm.
And so we got back home, and I started looking online, and I found out that there's this whole community of people that are living, in family units and traveling around and living in RVs, and uh, oh, well, that's a real possibility. So, and that would help us. We'd always have a place. Our home is with us wherever we are.
Mm-hmm.
The boys, they started to refer to our house as our home that didn't move, or home that
So
wasn't on
sweet.
wheels, or one of those. Uh, and then we had our whole house that moved. So we bought an RV, and packed up the family and downsized, and um, we headed west.
And you did more spa work and were able to explore the country at the same time. And then you were actually led back to Gainesville again.
Yes, yeah. We did that for a year. We went to Montana and Arizona, and our plan was to take maybe 6 months off, and like head up the west coast and across the top of the country, then down the east coast to back to Gainesville. And we have had a couple houses. We have a couple houses here, and we the idea our we rent them out, and the idea our tenants were leases were expiring, and the idea of trying to navigate that, you know, across the country felt a bit daunting, and uh, and that was also coupled with that was 2000, the end of 2016, beginning of 2017, and I had felt this really strong desire to do something that I felt like had an effect or a positive impact on the world, on my world.
Sure.
And I wasn't really clear what that was at the
Yeah.
time. But I knew that was a really strong feeling that I had. And despite all of our desires of wanting that epic road trip, uh, um, something was telling, like, hey, we got to go back to Gainesville. And I thought it
Yeah.
was just to sort of take care of some things that felt like they were tying us here, you know.
Right.
Uh,
Sure.
well, it turned out that that wasn't the case.
Right.
So it was actually 365 days to the day that we pulled back into our house in Gainesville from the
Wow.
day we left. And it was 10 days later that I had been offered and accepted this role as the director of the school, and I was back to work at the Florida School of Massage, which
Wow. Yeah.
really is the thing that, again, looking back, I believe is sort of the best shot, the best thing that I can be doing to have an impact on our world, because of the integrative, holistic experience and the transformation that occurs at the
Yes.
Florida School of Massage for so many people. And then they go out in the world and do that.
Yeah.
And then those
Yeah.
people are happier,
Yeah.
just
It's
like
like,
our mission says, to enhance the quality of life through the vehicles of touch and awareness.
yes.
Amazing.
And yes, and the ripple effect that that has. And that's really the perfect segue into my next question, which was I wanted to ask you if you, and this may be a little difficult to answer, but you're already starting to answer it, and that is like, what are some of the most rewarding aspects of this role that you've taken on these past 3 years of being the director of the Florida
Mm,
School of Massage?
yeah. Well, it's certainly been a whirlwind of experiences,
Yeah,
and never had I imagined that this is the position that I would be finding myself in,
right.
even early on.
Sure.
Uh, uh, y- I, you know, it's. it's really interesting because they're very similar to the things that I learned as a student, uh, or that I experienced as a student, and then again in the teacher training program, and then continuing on through my employment in all the
Yeah.
various roles and jobs that I'd had at the school. It's really no different, and the rewarding thing is that I'm challenged each day, maybe not every day, but to generalize. And generally, I don't like to generalize, but to challenge myself to continue to show up and to be seen and allow myself to be seen. And that's an edgy place for me. Even just contemplating coming on here and talking to you,
Huh?
who I feel very comfortable talking to, but knowing that, it's going out into the world. Um,
Sure.
but that's that's a sort of a constant reward, and that I
Yeah.
learned that I had that opportunity, and I developed that sort of skill set of not responding to the impulses that perhaps don't always serve me in my life,
Right.
which led to some of the reasons why I wasn't feeling fulfilled in my life.
Yeah.
To go full circle there, right?
Right. Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
So, and then of course seeing all the, the students, and working with the students' experiences, and watching that transformation, and working with just a wonderful community of people who care about
Yeah.
each other, care about the world, um, and it's a wonderful, rewarding experience, and I'm grateful to be a part of it.
Yes, and we're grateful to have you. And so, Bob, here we are in 2020, and of course, there's no way we could have predicted pausing for several months in response to COVID-19. And even though classes are not currently being held, I know you've been working very hard behind the scenes, like so many of us, recreating our program, and living the questions of how to navigate this time, both personally and professionally.
Mhm.
And I know many of our listeners would just love to hear an update on what's coming next for FSM and where we are in that
Yeah.
planning process.
Yeah. So, what's next for FSM? There's a variety of ways that I could answer that, and my intention is not to be cryptic in any way. There are certain things that I can talk about, and certain things that I don't feel like can really talk about, because we're still in the process of working with our regulatory agencies that govern us and
Sure.
license us, in navigating uh, our responses to COVID-19, and then what's happening next. So I can't really speak too much of those types of programmatic things. Uh,
Sure. The things that we're waiting for approval for
yeah,
example.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
sure.
what feels really true to me, and what feels really important to me, is that we continue to foster a space, and where people can come and feel empowered and experience empowerment in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, just again, like our mission statement says, through touch
Yeah.
and awareness, and that we maintain and uphold the values and the philosophy of the Florida School of Massage in
Yes.
whatever form or shape that it takes.
Yes. Yeah.
And uh, it's a really an amazing thing that's been created and sustained all these years through all of our community, alumni, faculty, staff alike, and to ensure that continues is, I think, what's really next. And we're facing really unprecedented and challenging times. And I was speaking with someone the other day. I came into this in March, thinking, okay, it's this time frame, thinking maybe it's a sprint, not realizing that we're actually in a marathon.
Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
as things starting as now, I'm a little slower. I don't know, but it's the realization is coming that we are in a marathon with this virus, and we're learning more and more about it. And we'll continue to learn more and more about it. And it's our job, to respond and to react to the knowledge that we have around this, and learn how to adapt and continue some movement in our lives. So we're adapting. We're doing some environmental things. We're installing UV light filtration systems in our AC systems, touchless faucets and soap dispensers. We'll have hygiene and safety protocols when we resume classes. And those are all things that we're just in the process of working on now, to get ready so that we can come back together in a safer way, maybe.
And we're hoping for September, right?
September 16th is the goal.
Yeah, great. Well, I'd like to pause. The time is flying, as usual, when we're in these conversations together. And I'd like to just call Sarah in and check in and see if we have any questions or comments from any of our listeners. Sarah, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
We sure can.
Well, I think a good question to go to would be so our September class filled up. It's full. And so we have some students that are planning for the January class. And if they're tuning in and listening to this, I wonder what advice you might give to them thinking about preparing for school in January.
Yeah, that's such a great question. And I'm, Sarah is in our admissions department, probably hears that question quite a bit as well. And really one of the things that I always hear in that is, what should I be reading? What should I be studying to prepare myself for this experience, this educational experience? And of course, there's materials out there and things that you can do. But really what I would suggest to prepare oneself is to start some self-care practices, and that's good, and it's so important right now, particularly with everything that's happening. So self-care is a very broad thing. It could be any type of movement, activity, or just separating out 15 minutes for yourself. It's a wide spectrum of what self-care can be, but those are the practices that I think can really benefit people in preparing not only for their time with us at the school, but in life in general. And it's just so important thing to do at any time, but particularly at this time.
Yes. Yeah. And
I could go on about that. Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay. It's such a good point, and something that, of course, everyone learns more about once they're a student and getting ready to start in this profession. We have to learn to take care of ourselves before we can take care of others, right?
So true. So important.
Yeah. So important. And a lifelong lesson for most of us in this profession.
Yeah.
So, what else, Bob? Anything else you'd like to share? I do have one final question for you, which is something we talk about a lot in the school, and that is this concept of through this vehicle of massage as a profession, living life on your own terms.
Mm.
And I would love to hear from you. You talked a little bit about it in the beginning, but what does it mean to you to live life on your own terms? And how did the Florida School of Massage education facilitate that for you?
Yeah. Yeah. Such a wonderful question. And, you know, the whole, basically the whole story that I just shared of my life from the time of driving by in November of 2005 to this present moment sitting here right now uh, with you all is there could be for me no clearer example of living one's life on their own terms.
Mm.
You know, that the 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 awareness to recognize that I have choices in my life.
Mm.
You
Yes.
know, that's the thing I think that really empowers me or anyone uh, in their lives. You
Yeah.
know, prior to my experiences of massage, and this sounds weird coming out of my mouth right now, but you know,
Yeah.
I didn't think I had a lot of choices.
Huh.
You know, or they didn't seem apparent to me
Sure.
anyway. You know,
Sure.
in the grand scheme of things. Uh,
Right. Yeah. As you
and
described, you were doing things like you thought you were supposed to be doing.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
So the recognition, the awareness of choice, you
Mm.
know, that uh, oh, hey, something's not feeling quite right, or something's feeling really good. Let me orient, move towards that, or you know, I don't know, this isn't really working or flowing or something. You know, let's I don't want to keep swimming upstream. You know,
Yeah.
let me move towards things that are, and uh, and that is, at least in my experience and what I see in the world at times, you know, is that so many of us, so many people tend to feel like they don't have a choice in some things. And I mean, this topic can we can get very deep into this topic, so that's not really my intention. But the that empowerment piece is really again what I think it is of that I learned that enables me to create and live a life on my own terms. And I would feel remiss, I guess, and I'm not even clear exactly the best way to phrase this, uh, you know, but uh, with the social economic injustices that are happening right now in our country and all over the world,
Yes.
and the Black Lives Matter movement, uh, which I'm uh, so grateful to see some movement, and it feels like there's some sustained movement happening to address the inequities and uh, particularly the racial inequities that have existed in this country uh, forever. You know, when I'm speaking of my life and feeling empowered, you know, that those thoughts come to my mind, and I feel I need to acknowledge that, you know, a part of that is a privilege that I've enjoyed, you know.
Yes.
So